Hey there, welcome to Bandit's Keep. I'm Daniel, and in this video we're going to create a short adventure. This should be able to be run as a single session, kind of one shot. I'm continuing my series of going through the kind of adventure seeds that come with the Moldvay basic book. Let me take a look at that. So I've done a bunch of these already. I've been rolling random. There's a list of 10 over here that I roll on. There's only 5 left, so I kind of just went through and I was trying to decide what to do this week. And I was watching a video by K.R. King from D&D Homebrew. I'll put a link to it. And he was talking about forbidden things and this story that he read about this whistle, that the person found this whistle, and when they blew it, this kind of ghost or whatever you might want to call it, kind of started stalking them. And of course, that made me think of one of my favorite monsters, the Invisible Stalker. And he had some great ideas. Watch that video. He had some great ideas how you could use this, and this is kind of my idea. So what I thought was the whistle is found by somebody in Bologna, and this Invisible Stalker now is hunting them. And the party is brought in to basically kind of help with the situation. So I already put this up into my group where I run games with just the kind of basic info on it. And I'm going to run it tomorrow, as it would be, before obviously this video goes live. So hopefully we'll be able to have an actual play for this too. If so, it'll be linked in the description below. If I don't get to play it before this goes live, I'll put the link as soon as I can, and I'll pin a comment. But in any case, let's take a quick look at my notes here. This is basically my iPad. And you can see what I've noted down so far. Young Prince, Bradley, fancying himself an adventurer, did ride forth. This is what I wrote in the gaming group. He found an ancient stone whistle, and thus he did blow. And now an ancient evil stalks the young royal. And then lead and protect the prince to the Eye of Cain. Throw the whistle into the molten rock. Only then will the creature return from whence it came. It's a 3rd level adventure for BX, and I'm going to provide pre-gens if people want them. So that's basically how I pitch a game, if anybody's ever wondered that kind of thing. It's very Lord of the Rings, right? We're just throwing this thing into a volcano, destroy it, kind of classic. It's a stone whistle, melted the volcano makes sense. That is the most minimal part of the quest, though, right? The actual throwing the thing in is going to be minimal. What this quest is mostly going to entail is the trip to the volcano. And I'm going to do just kind of an abstracted point crawl, for lack of a better way to say it. And then we're going to kind of play around with that idea a little bit. So before I do that, I've got to have a few things in my mind as to how this thing's going to work. So let's take a look at the Invisible Stalker. Okay, so we can see that it's 8 hit dice, which is very tough. Armor class 3, and movement is 120, so that's fast. It's like an unarmored person. It only has 1 attack, but it does 4 to 16 damage. It saves at a fighter 8, so very powerful. Its morale is 12. That means it is not going to go anywhere. It is, in fact, neutral because it doesn't really care what it's doing. It's just trying to fulfill a quest. This is the kind of, if you're not familiar with Invisible Stalkers, effectively it is a monster that is created by a spell, usually by a magic user, that is sent to do a quest. But, hunt something down and kill it, guard something, that kind of thing. They're kind of otherworldly beings. So my idea is that this whistle, the way it works is you blow the whistle. If you know the proper magical phrasing, you're going to, when the Invisible Stalker appears in front of you, you say abracadabra or whatever it might be, and then you name the quest for the Invisible Stalker. It goes and does it, and then it's gone. Easy peasy. Problem is, this young prince didn't know that, so when he blew it, he now becomes the victim. The stalker cannot return to where it wants to go back to, its own world, until the prince is dead, because now that's it, right? It sees him, he's the victim. So over the course of the last, what I have down is it's been 7 days since this happened. Over the course of time, the Invisible Stalker keeps trying to attack the prince every night, who is guarded, of course, by a regiment of guards, so the king's men are just getting slaughtered. Finally, they cast a Contact Other Planes spell, which is a spell in the, I think it's in the expert book, and they find that they can destroy it this way. The party's brought in basically small force to bring the prince to the volcano. They know they have some time because the stalker attacks like once every 24 hours, so they're basically taking off on horses. This is why I had the other thing open. Now note here the Invisible Stalker's speed is 120. Because it is magical, I'm going to assume that it can travel nonstop, right? It doesn't have to rest, doesn't have to do anything else. Now if we put the party on horses, which you can actually see is right here, riding horses go 240, so they're twice as fast. But you can only ride the horse for, part of the day, right? So what's going to effectively happen is the Invisible Stalker is effectively almost as fast as the player characters are when they're on horses. So it's going to be a race. The The other thing we have going on here is if I go back to my movement thing, and again, you can get really really heavy into this technically and really kind of map this out. I'm trying to keep it abstracted. If we look at this, you know, when we go down here to the bottom part, it talks about the terrain. So I'm going to kind of start the players out. There's 4 kinds of terrain here, right? Yeah, there's 4 kinds of terrains. I'm going to basically have them travel over, or all 4 of them. And when we start to kind of figure it out, if the stalker never gets slowed down or speeded up in the case of roads, it would probably catch them just around the time they're going to get to the mountain, right? Because they've got a little bit of a lead. So that actually works out perfectly for us. If they are held up by something, they might end up having to fight this thing before they get to the mountain. Otherwise, when they get there, it's going to show up because it needs to be there. That's going to be part of the thing. It needs to be there, and then as soon as they see the stalker, they know it's there. See it. As soon as it appears and they know it's there, they're going to throw the whistle in its presence, and that will destroy it. That's basically all they got to do, which is going to create an interesting situation because the players are going to have to effectively be standing there with the whistle ready to go. And if the stalker ends up getting surprised or they don't have some kind of thing in place, it might actually kill the prince before they can throw it in, right? Because he's going to die real easy. He's just a regular human, basically. Okay, so with all that out of the way, there's 4 types of terrain. I think I'm just going to make this a 4-step kind of point crawl. And what we're going to do is develop there's going to be an encounter at the end of each one of these days, which each day you're going to travel through one of these things, and we'll make those random. So we're going to build this up as basically a series of random charts. So with all that said, let's jump to the iPad and let's take a quick look here what we've got going on. All right, so again, I made my notes here. We want it to be 4 days. I'll actually add that. And, $sign days, 4 days, 4 days. And we want each of the days to be over the different types of terrain. So road, this is when they're kind of in the road country part. I'm going to actually put it in a different order than they have here. Because it makes more sense for me to look like this, grasslands. So effectively they're moving through the kingdom, and then forests, and then they're going to go to mountains, because obviously the volcano is going to be a mountain. So that's our 4 areas, and what we're going to do is in each one of these areas we're going to create a possible encounter. It's going to just automatically happen. There's going to be an encounter that they'll have to deal with, and you can place it wherever you want. You can pre-roll this. You can have the players roll it, which is how I like to do things. And we're going to have 4 options. So let's start with road. So what I'm thinking here is one of these will be a wandering monster or a random monster, right? We'll use the charts in the expert book for that. One of them will be a pool, which I've got this here. This is Wormskin, which is the kind of the Dolmen Wood zine, if you will. This is the last one they actually put out officially, I think. This is number 8. Gavin Norman has been building, the creator of OSC, has been building, I think, a Patreon around this whole setting. I'm not part of the Patreon, so I don't have any more information, but you can look that up. I'll see if I can find it. But this you can get on Various TTRPG still, so I'll put a link to that for sure. The reason why I have this out is because this has a section in the back here that is magical pools. So I feel like I want to do a magical pool. So we'll go monster. Let's see, we're going to go here. Effectively, this is going to be the same on all of these, right? So 1's going to be monster. Number 2 is going to be a pool. Okay, now for the other 2, what I'm going to do here is I've got, let's see, boom, you should be able to see that. Okay, I've got Donjon open, and this is just the random generator. They have this thing up here that has dungeon graffiti. So I'm going to roll randomly on this, and based on what the dungeon graffiti says, we're going to create some kind of little scene around it, right? It's going to be vague, but we'll figure it out. That'll be kind of the creative part here. And then once we get all 4 of these done, we'll do a quick little dungeon, which will just be really simple. Depending on how long we think this will take, that dungeon could literally be as simple as you just get up there and, there's the fight with the invisible stalker or throw another thing in. Or maybe possibly the mountain encounter will end up being part of that. We'll kind of see how that works. So let me refresh this. So I'm going to basically hit dungeon graffiti, generate. There's 10 options here. I'm going to roll this and then we're going to make up something. And again, this is on the road. 3. Jade, iron. Okay, we'll leave that for a second. And then this one here, for the fourth option, I'm going to go omens importance, and I'm going to generate, and I'm going to roll one here. 9. The flame volcano turns black and casts shadow instead of light. Ooh. All right, and again, this is a third level adventure. I'm not going to go too crazy here, but let's just see how we can work this out. Now let's go to the expert book. Okay, we're going to go here. We're going to go to wilderness encounters. So again, we're on the road, and we can look here, and we've got one of these should be inhabited. It's not a city; it's inhabited, right? So we're going to roll a d8, see what it is. 2. A flyer. Okay. Then I'm going to come over to my flyer chart. I think flyers are on the next page. Yep, there they are. I'm going to roll a d12. And it's going to be other. 7. Pegasus. I mean, the party could use that to their advantage, right? If Pegasus is generally a good creature, if I'm remembering correctly, and that means that the Pegasus could possibly help. While I'm here, I'm just going to go over to the other ones, and I'm going to create the possible monster for each of these as well, because we're on this page. We're just going to bang this out. So I'm going to go back up to here, and I'm going to roll 4 grasslands. Roll d8. 8. Insect. I'm going to come over here. And of course, you can do this while you're playing, but the way I'm doing this, I'm kind of mixing it up, because I feel like only encountering monsters isn't necessarily always as fun. So, giant scorpion. Ooh, okay, that's tough. But third level party, they might be okay. All right. For forest, I'm just doing all the monsters first, guys, so that I don't have to keep going back and forth. For here, I'm going to roll a d8. I got a 7. This is woods, animal. So we're going to go suitable animal. I'm just looking for it. Okay, suitable animal for woods. So there's a d12. 1. Antelope. Okay, that's probably... They get that. That's probably a pretty chill encounter. And then finally for the mountains, our monster will be number 4. Barren mountains, hills. 4 is unusual. Okay. Suitable men. Humanoid, flyer, dragon, insect. Unusual. Here we go. D12. There's only one list, so 4. Displacer beast. Okay. Now remember, this doesn't mean they're going to encounter a displacer beast per se. It means that they're going to encounter, there's going to be a 1 in 4 chance that they'll encounter that. They're going to encounter something up here. So let's go back now. I'm just going to go back to my, actually, you know what I'll do to keep this efficient. I'm trying to make it interesting to watch, but also efficient for me. I'm going to go to the web again, and I'm going to do all the omens and stuff first. So 2 is always going to be a pool. So 3 is going to be I guess technically 4 is going to be a portent. Doesn't actually matter. I'll just do it this way. 3. Here we go. Generate. Roll d10. 3. A black wolf gives birth to 5 venomous serpents. This is the kind of thing that's like weird and probably, some kind of evil is creating it. So now in our forest area, and again, these aren't separated by forest, whatever. These are technically all dungeon things, but, making it work. A halo of prismatic light surrounds the moon. Okay. Okay, and finally... A cloud shaped like a wolf appears in the sky. Easy, right? Now I'm going to go, those are the omens importance. Now I'm going to go to the graffiti. And I'm going to do the same thing for each. So again, I'm going to generate, roll a d10. Watch out for the shadows. Okay, and next one. Oh, this is, it's this long kind of prophecy. I'm not going to use that because it doesn't really work for anything. But a crude drawing of a nymph works. Again, when you're doing this kind of stuff, you're using it for inspiration. So if it just absolutely doesn't make any sense, clearly you're not going to use it. Run away. That could be really interesting as well. And that's actually in the mountains, right? Okay, cool. That was fun. Now, before I go through all the stuff, well, let me go back here for a second. Okay, so we can see what we have so far. Now we get to what I think is going to be real fun here. This is the pools from the Dolmenwood book. So this is a D30 roll. And what we're going to do is, let me go to it. I got my book here. Strange Waters. So there's four lines rather on the chart. You can either just roll a D30 and read it straight across, or you can, roll a D30 basically 4 times to get a lot of different variety. I think I'll just read it straight across just to keep it simple for the video, but you can do it either way. When I was playing in my Winter's Daughter campaign and we used this, I had each one of the players roll 1, and then I just, pull from it. So, all right, so the first pool. This will be the pool that they find along the roadside if they find one. 7. Okay. Number 7, puddle at the feet of a melting ice statue of a horned goddess. That's kind of cool. Because remember, not everything that they encounter should be bad. In fact, they might only encounter good stuff. I mean, who knows? I'll clean that up in a second. Let's go to the next one, because that was good. 17. Pissing gargoyle, a cherub poised atop a boulder. Now, again, if you want to run this a little bit more in a controlled manner when you're doing these kind of things, you could always start with the first one. I rolled a 2 there. You can always start with the first one and then kind of just look down the list and see what makes sense to have the story continue in a proper manner. Or you can just make it be random and kind of figure out a way to make it make sense. Do one more, and then I'll go through this whole thing and summarize it all. Let's go 26. Again, all this stuff is supposed to be inspirational, right? It's not supposed to lock you in or make it so that the adventure doesn't work properly. It'd be all weird or whatever. Okay, I'm kind of neating this up, and let's kind of fill this in and see what we can do here. Again, this journey can be, you can kind of shorten things, make things a little longer, kind of play around with it. This should create this tension moving up. Always remember the invisible stalker is following them, right? So they're going to, whatever decisions they make here, hopefully will help. Now, for instance, if in this first road encounter, you roll a 1 and they see Pegasus, and a Pegasus or multiple Pegasus, they might decide to take the time to try to capture one or befriend it, and then they'll be able to, Pegasus goes way faster than a riding horse, right? It can fly basically twice as fast, which means that if they get a Pegasus on their side, they might actually be able to outpace this invisible stalker by a lot and not really have any problems. On the other hand, if they do something and they have to end up resting or something happens to them, they get slowed down or whatever, it might catch them before they get there. And to this, I'm going to say you got to kind of keep a little DM fiat going on, creating all kinds of micro situations to know how to do that when you're creating the encounter. I feel like just bogs down the encounter, or the module, I should say. So keeping it more vague, let's take a quick look. So on day 1, you're going to roll a d4. If they get a 1, they're going to encounter Pegasus, right? And you'll basically, Pegasus come in 1 to 12. They could be doing almost anything. It's going to be on the roads. They could be on the side of the road. They could be whatever. They are lawful. You can use whatever you want, but semi-intelligent flying horses cannot be tamed, but will serve lawful characters if captured when young and trained. Okay, so it does say they cannot be tamed, but they will serve lawful characters if captured. So what I take from that is that you can, if you want to have Pegasus as a permanent mount, that's what you would have to do. But I think for the purposes of this adventure, if you can speak to the Pegasus or use some kind of animal skills or whatever, you probably can get them to help you if you are lawful, right? And you have a good cause. So that's one option. Now let's look at our pool. Puddle at the feet of a melting ice statue of a horned goddess. It's the puddle. The puddle is a perfect mirror. The water is clean and very cold, and it's blessed if they drink it. +1 to attacks and saving throws for 24 hours. So they're going to find this pool of water with this statue. Again, it's a melting ice statue of a horned goddess. You can elaborate and put whatever else you want into that. I'm going to leave it vague. since I'm not writing this for a very specific world, that could be anything. You put whatever you like there, right? But just keep in mind, it's blessing, so it shouldn't be anything evil. Then we see Jade Iron. Now, what I get from this is that it could be almost anything, right? But I think this could actually be some kind of because again, we're on the road. So perhaps this is some kind of an encampment of knights, and that is their symbol, right? So what we could do here is I'm going to go Jade Iron. Actually, what would be interesting and what could cause some issues is Jade Knights. In conflict with the Swords of Iron, who are also knights. Okay? And again, you can play that up however you want. That could effectively, they're crossing a battlefield. I'll make some notes here. Could slow progress. Right? This is one of those things where maybe this is a social encounter, as people like to call it. You're going to basically come into this area where people are fighting, and you got to get your prince through on your horses without getting involved in it. Hopefully, otherwise it's going to slow you down. This one right here is real simple. Flame of Candle. I'm just going to change it to Flames. I'm just going to say Flames. Turn black and cast Shadows. Encounter with shadows, the monster shadows. So if you're around the campfire, shadows attack. Just a good little combat, break it up, make it a little weird. Okay, day 2, we've got giant scorpions as a possible bad guy. They're pretty tough at 4 hit dice. There could be 1 to 6 of them. This is, again, one of those things. Avoid, possibly lose their horses to the giant scorpions. That would be a good way to play it, right? They're the size of a small horse. Grass, blah, blah. Yeah, they've got save versus death. So what I would probably do here is, since everybody's on horses at this point, I'd have the giant scorpions go after the horses first. Because if they get the horses, that's going to slow the party down, which is going to be, again, allow you to build more pressure. They can't quite catch up with riding horses. So if they depending on how the situation happens, whether they surprise or not, they might just be a run past them if they encounter it. Again, this is in the grasslands. If they encounter a pool, there's going to be a pissing gargoyle or a cherub poised atop a boulder. It's refracting the pool itself. The water is refracting rainbow light. If you taste it, it's salty. It tastes like blood. And now it says the effect is libido becomes entirely focused on statuary. Depending on your group and how you want to play that out, that's the kind of thing I'd probably play as those drinking must save or not want to leave the statue area for 24 hours. Okay, and this is now going to slow them down. Now, if everybody fails, they're going to hang out there, right? And that's going to be a problem because now the invisible stalkers are going to catch up. If not all of them fail, then they can drag the party away. It could be a good, again, kind of role-play encounter. This is obviously Black Wolf gives birth to 5 venomous serpents. That's a combat almost certainly. And then just a graffiti that says "Watch out for the shadows." In this case, I'd probably say PCs begin to take strange animal shapes. Okay, that's just to freak them out. Day 3, they're going through the forest. They might encounter some antelope, right? This is probably just a nothing encounter if it happens. You could make it kind of block them up. I doubt very much that the antelope are going to be aggressive unless the player characters do something to them. So you could, if you want to create a situation, depending on how quickly this thing's going, if thing's going by too quick, you could have it so they're kind of in the way, and that if they spook the horses, that kind of stuff. So if you want to do that, certainly you could do that. But I feel like at this point, the antelope are probably a nothing encounter. Bubbling stream crosses the path. It's bubbly. It tastes like bile, but once they take it, they don't need to eat for 7 days, which is nice. If you're worrying about that kind of stuff, in this case, but it's still kind of cool. I wouldn't tell the first player that does it that's the case. I would just say it tastes like bile and it's disgusting, and then I would wait till the next time they're settling down to eat, and I would just say, like, you're energized and you don't feel like you need to eat, because otherwise, as soon as you say you don't have to eat, everybody's just going to drink. Okay, a portent. A halo of prismatic light surrounds the moon. That can again just be atmosphere. And then a crude drawing of a nymph. I think at this point, this right here could end up being some kind of a fun little encounter. Perhaps it's some kind of a magical ruin that is trapping some kind of a sprite or something. Let's say it's in the forest, right? So it's trapping a sprite that will help the party if it is freed. So again, they come across this drawing, they can mess with it, they can not mess with it. You got to play out where you want to go with it. All right, so day 4, they enter into the mountains. They might encounter displacer beasts, which are neutral. They may or may not attack depending on the situation. Definitely a reaction roll. Could be a tough fight. Could be kind of a fun fight. As they're kind of entering into the mountains. At this point, they're going to have to leave horses. Okay. Assuming you roll a 2, now you have another pool here. A shallow, muddy pool inhabited by lilies and amphibians. Glistens like ice crystals. Tastes like bread. A voice decreases or increases in pitch and a volume permanently when you drink it. So it just messes with the party. It's kind of a fun little fairy pool. It's just a cloud shaped like a wolf. A cloud appearing like a wolf appears in the sky. That could just be an omen. And finally, the runaway. I'm going to say small rocks arranged in the words run away. If any rocks are touched, minor avalanche. Occurs 3d6. Save. For half. Okay, so that's like a trap, basically. Again, if they're traveling up the mountain, they're just going to see this thing just run away. Don't touch it, right? Sometimes it's a good idea to touch stuff, sometimes it's not, right? And at this point now, we're going to have reached the dungeon. I would say at this point, you should be about half to 3/4 the way a 3-hour session. You should be like an hour and a half into this thing, maybe even 2 hours into what would be roughly a 3-hour session to me. And now we're going to do the final kind of mountain dungeon. I'm going to draw out a quick little dungeon with just a couple of rooms, so it has like a little flavor to it. If you're running late at this point, it would be easy to just basically make these rooms empty, but I feel like they should be something, right? Instead of just climbing to the top of the mountain. Another option here would be if you wanted to have them climb to the top, you could just roll twice on this chart, or you could add something extra at the top, like a standard encounter. But I think that they're probably going to have some kind of a fight on some level with the invisible stalker up here, so we don't want to put too much. All right, so let's go to here. I'm just going to draw a really basic dungeon. It should be basically like caverns, but we're going to assume that they've been climbing for quite a bit to get up to it, and they're going to come to what is effectively, they're on this like narrow ledge that comes up, and it's going to then open up into a wider area, and then of course end. So it's going to be something like this. They've been traveling up the mountain for however long, and again, you can make checks to go up here. You can really play around with that part. I would base that on how long everything's taking. When they get up to this point here, I would say there's going to be a huge set of doors. That's always fun to do. Big old 20-foot huge double doors to opening up into the space beyond. Could use a strength check to open it. Could be locked. We could play around with that idea. It's going to open up to some kind of a great hall, because you figure that these volcanoes were probably used, for some kind of forging or something. In fact, that's what we're going to do. We're effectively going to make this be this large hall that comes out, which is then going to narrow down like this. And then it's going to open up into a very large cavern, which is basically where some of the flame is going to be, the volcano, essentially. Right? We'll have kind of like a bit of a landing, if you will, here. Kind of goes there. This is effectively like fire. This is basically a volcano. 100 foot down, if you're falling, you're dead kind of thing. And then what we'll do is we'll have a nice wide, let's say, "30-foot wide walkway that goes out to the end." This is very Lord of the Rings, right? And then it's going to go here, and there's going to actually be a spot here where the forge was, where you can drop the ring into it, right? So effectively, these are walls. They can't really. I mean, I guess you theoretically climb over them, but this would be like thick. So they got to walk out to here and then drop it into the fire, because this is going to protect them. Because basically this is very hot, right? So we'll make some notes in a second. Up here, I'm going to actually add a couple of rooms, just because you don't want to I mean, this is the most linear dungeon ever, right? We're going to add a couple of rooms. That way, if the party wants to explore a little bit, they can. I'm not going to make doors here. I'm just going to basically have these be archways going in. Like that. And then we're going to, I guess once they get past here, yeah, that's it. Super simple. You could add a lot more than this, but I feel like sometimes it's nice to be simple. So let's make a few notes here. I'm going to, like I always do, I'm going to put another layer here so I can annotate this for myself. This way, this is the map. I'm going to switch my color to red. Okay, so this area number 1 is going to be our walkway, our entrance. Then we've got room number 2, 3, 4. This area is going to be 5. I'm going to call these A, and then B. This is all 5. So I actually looked around. Like one of my go-tos for this kind of stuff is Dyson Logos. He makes amazing maps, and a lot of them are available for people to use for free. He has a couple good volcano ones. They were kind of big though, and I didn't want it to be a full volcano dungeon. So if you want to make this more of an epic fight in here or whatever, you could certainly do that. But we're just going to keep this real 5 rooms, super simple. Oh, 5-room dungeon. Not really. All right, so let me rearrange myself so we can get there, and we'll do this. Okay, I'm back in the basic book, because again, this is a 3rd level adventure, and now we're in a dungeon, so I want to use these charts. I'm going to use because I don't really have a plan here, I'm going to use the randomizer, and we'll see what we find, and if we don't like it, then we can always change it. So what you do here, if you've not seen this before, over to the left, I'm going to roll a d6 to see what's in the first room. We know that first room is that outside area with the door, but let's see if there's anything else there. Okay, I rolled a 2. A 2 indicates a monster, okay? And I'm going to roll again to see if there's any treasure here. I rolled a 2, and there is a treasure. Okay, so I'm just going to make a note here. Monster and treasure. Okay, then once you get past that door, right, now you're in that large open area. Let's see what's in there, if anything. 6 is empty, and I'm going to roll on, 6 is just straight up empty, which means if I roll a 1 on a d6, there's actually treasure in there. I rolled a 5, there's not, so that room's empty. Okay, so I may actually change this, we'll talk about it in a second. 3 and 4 are the 2 little side rooms. Let's see if there's anything in there. Empty for 3, a monster for 2, with treasure. Okay, so empty. Okay, now in area 5, I there could be some kind of monster out here or whatever. I'm not sure, but I definitely want to make other notes beyond this. But let's just start. Area 5. I rolled a 5, which is empty. Oh, come on. And a 5, which is empty. Okay, so there's no monster or treasure in 5, which kind of works out for me. Okay, so area number 1, it says that there's going to be a monster and treasure. And this is on the outside. So there might be something interesting out here. I don't know. Maybe something's on the ledge. So we're going to look at our wandering monsters or our monsters in BX and see if there's some kind of creature that might want to be out there. I'm thinking possibly a griffin. And the reason why I say that is because griffins are the natural enemies of Pegasus. And if you've gotten a Pegasus so you can get up here quicker, then that would be a cool little fight. But we'll take a look. 2 is empty, which is fine. You're kind of coming in, it's the hallway, and then it says 3 and 4, one of them is empty, one is a monster. I figured that's actually a combined lair of some kind of monster. 5, on the other hand, is empty, and that's just going to be our volcano area. That's probably where they're going to face the invisible stalker. So I think this actually works out if we can figure out something good for number 1. If we can't find something that makes sense to be there for number 1, I think what I'd do instead is move that monster inside to number 2. But let's just take a look. Okay, we're going to look at wandering monsters. This is, again, a 3rd level adventure, so let's just look at the 3rd level monsters and see if there's something that could be living out on that cliff. I'd love something to be a flyer. I mean, you could do something like spiders, but let's look at number 2. Yeah, I don't think griffins are in this book. Okay, so actually, let me just take a quick look. Okay, it looks like griffins are in the in the expert book, and they are actually 7 hit dice. That's probably too much to deal with, even though that would be really fun. So a monster that makes sense to be out here would be some kind of a statue. I like the idea of using a rock living statue out here because it's outside number 1, but also because rock living statues have magma inside them, so that when you attack them, they can shoot rather magma out of their fingertips, which kind of sets you up for this whole thing. So I think in room number 1, I'm going to rock living statues, and they can be up to 3. So I'm going to roll a d6 and cut it in half. Okay, there are 3. That is going to be a tough fight, but you know what? There's also a ledge there. Creative players can do all kinds of cool stuff. Okay, so we're going to put 3 rock living statues here. But sometimes it's good to give the players a little bit of advantage. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to come into this map, and I'm going to draw the 3 statues. 1, 2, 3. And this out here is a 1,000-foot drop. So what does that tell you? If a player sees these 3 living statues, they go up to the door, they try to mess with it, the statues come alive, they could possibly knock them off the side if they think of that, and players think of that kind of stuff. Rock living statues are pretty tough, but I think they can handle it. Okay, so 3 rock living statues guarding the door. Their treasure, again, their treasure type is nil, which is kind of bogus, but at the same time, it is what it is. So when something has a treasure type nil, but it calls for treasure, what we do is we come up here and we look at the stocking the dungeon, and there is actually a Okay, so I use the OSC generators. I've used them before. I'll put a link to create some quick treasure. And what I see is a whole bunch of gems and some gold and silver. So what I'm thinking of doing is actually changing all this treasure here so that it's all gems. Okay, you know what I think I'm going to use in this room here is actually oil beetles. All right, keeping with the theme here, I'm going to use oil beetles. Now, you might be thinking, well, why wouldn't you use fire beetles? That's keeping with the theme. Well, fire beetles have the little glowy abdomens, which are really cool, and I love fire beetles, one of my favorite little monsters. But oil beetles, on the other hand, they shoot like an oil at you that burns you and blisters you. You could treat that as acid, but you could also treat it as heat, right? So I'm actually going to put oil beetles in room 4. There can be up to 2 to 8, because we'll call this their lair. Okay, there's going to be 6. And they're 3.1 hit. They're 2 hit dice, so... Oh, no, hold on, 2 while I rolled the wrong thing. 4. Huh, I rolled less. 5 oil beetles. Okay, and there's going to be treasure. Again, they have nil listed for their treasure type, so I'm going to jump over to the OSC charts over here. Again, this is in the basic book, so I'm going to roll on this chart. We're level 2 to 3 dungeons. I'm just going to click on this. Now, it might come up 0. No, I don't think it can go 0, but if it comes up 0, I'll give it some treasure because we rolled this treasure. Yeah, there we go. Oh, there's actually a magic item there. Boom. Okay, so we've got these cool items here. Okay, so we got a decent haul actually with the oil beetles. Hey, they're not going to be easy. They're 2 hit dice, whatever, and they spit that oily, the burning oil on you. But 900 silver pieces, a 50 gold piece gem, 200 to 100 gold piece gems, and a spell scroll, which is very nice, including a cure light wound spell, which is great for a cleric, and possibly at this point you might need it. If you're at this point. Again, now room 5 doesn't have any monsters, but if we look at our map, 5A is basically the outside of the area where the ledges with lava. I'm going to say that's incredibly hot there, and you can't stand there without taking damage. 5B is going to be like enclosed with that kind of center part. So, you could throw it off the side of A, but since they have to wait for the invisible stalker, if they want to get close to a place to dump it, they're going to want to go to B. Let's just write that up. Okay. Now I'm going to make a note here. It must be within melee range when the whistle is dropped to destroy it. Normal combat can also destroy. Obviously, I don't want to say you can't kill it with normal combat, but again, it's 8 hit dice. It's pretty tough. It's going to be hard for a party to beat it. I put that in effectively because you might be looking at this going, well, you need to kill it this way. You can just kill it. If on the second day the invisible stalker catches up to them and the party fights it and kills it, done, right? They probably should still go destroy the whistle because otherwise the adventure's over really quickly, and plus they want the whistle to be destroyed because it's evil. But they don't have to. They could just kill the invisible stalker and be done with this whole thing. That's why, like I say, this is basically a one-shot. One thing that I think is kind of not used enough in adventures is the idea that the players could figure out a way to solve this thing really quickly and easily, and if that's the case and they're done, if you plan on playing 3 hours and they can do it in an hour, don't take that away from them. If they figure out a really good way that would work, let them do it. I would say, though, that if a standard party of 4 or 5 adventurers are fighting an invisible stalker, of 3rd level adventurers are fighting an invisible stalker, they're going to have a heck of a time beating it. Because it is invisible, it will. It's going to have the surprise at the beginning, and it's got a good armor class, and it's fast, right? So it's going to be able to move around and stay out of people's range. I would constantly have it moving away, so that they can't attack it because they won't know where it is and that kind of stuff. Obviously, if the party takes it out, sleep spells, stuff like that aren't going to work at it. It's too powerful. So. Again, fighting the thing is not going to necessarily be the smartest thing to do up front. They may not have a choice, but in the scheme of things, the storyline, if you will, is that they're going to go to this place. Eventually, the stalker is going to show up. When it shows up, they're going to drop that whistle in, and boof, it's gone. Done. We probably should give I had said that the prince was only a normal human, but I think we'll make him. He'll be a non-combatant, but because obviously they don't want the prince to fight. But I think we'll give him a little bit more, a little more power than that. So we're going to make him a prince. Is a 2nd level so he's not great. He's second level because he's a prince and he's been able to go out there and do it. So he's going to have like 10 hit points. So he's not going to be, he won't be, hopefully he won't get killed in one hit if the invisible stalker does hit him, but he's not going to be able to take 2 hits. That's almost certain. And he's not going to fight unless he has to. We'll actually put him in plate mail and stuff. AC 3, sword. Okay, so he's got, he's got his thing going on. You play him however you want, obviously, but the party should be the party, right? Don't have an NPC win the day for the group. Okay, so hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. If you have questions or thoughts or things you'd want to change, let me know in the comments below. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you get notifications. And I'll see you next time.